Hello and welcome to another Positive Thinking webinar. It's been a while since our last one. Thanks for staying with us. There's quite a few of you online today, so thank you very much indeed for attending and taking your time out of your no doubt busy schedule. Today we are looking at the subject of social media and ITS. What role can social media play in ITS? How can transportation agencies from across the world use social media? How can their citizens, how can their customers use social media to get around their city, to get around their regions in a sort of more ordered fashion. Now, we have a number of speakers, but first of all, of course, introduce myself and my colleagues. I'm Kevin Boris. I'm the editor of Thinking Highways magazine and co-founder of H3B Media. We run the Positive Thinking webinar, so welcome. I'm joined some 5,000 miles to my west by Bob McQueen. Hi, Bob.
Did you say I was 5,000 miles from your vest?
No. It's in the west. You're 5,000 to my west. As I'm looking to my left, which is the west.
Okay. Can't you see me waving?
I don't wear a vest, but yeah. So Bob is some 5,000 miles away in the town of Apopka, Florida. So Bob is the person that drives these things, if you like. I kind of steer, he drives. So Bob is that far away, and just about 18 feet away from me is my colleague Gareth Hayward. Hello, Gareth.
Hello.
Hello, he's unmuted himself. Gareth is the person that's involved with all the technical stuff. If it doesn't work, it's not his fault. But if it does work, it is down to him. And also, Gareth fields the questions and makes sure everyone can hear each other, which we can. We have 5 excellent speakers. I'll introduce them more quickly. Joining us from Haifa in Israel is Eilat Gal-Zur. She's the head of traffic management research at Technion, Israel Institute of Technology in Israel. Hello, Eilat, how are you doing? Can you
Hi, right here in the Middle East.
Yes, so this is the true global nature of webinars. We've got people from Florida and Israel on the same thing. It's marvelous. Anyway, so wonders of modern technology, which of course the whole webinar is about the wonders of modern technology. Anyway, we also have, not that far away, who's joining us from the University of Leeds in the UK. It's Susan Grant-Muller. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Susan is senior lecturer at the Institute for Transport Studies in the University of Leeds. We also have joining us from the US is Lloyd Brown. Lloyd is Director of Communications at AASHTO, which is the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. Hi, Lloyd. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for inviting me.
Excellent. No, well, thank you for accepting. We also have my good friend, Mr. Andy Palanisamy. Andy is the man responsible for the blog Transport Guru, which I'm sure you all read on a regular basis. This is his words. Andy's an engineer, social media wonk, and communications nerd, which I think, if you can describe yourself as anything, that's as good as anything, isn't it? But Andy does have a regular day job at Citizant, where he is a contractor supporting the ITS JPO efforts. Hi, Andy.
Hey guys, how are you? Thank you for inviting.
No, we're all very well. Andy and I will discuss cricket slightly later today. But for now, we're going to stick to social media. And last but not least, we have Larry Ale, joining us from the west coast of the USA. Larry is the publisher of Transportation Issues Daily, which is a weekly e-newsletter and daily blog that provides short, plain language stories about federal and Pacific Northwest transportation policy, funding, and legislative issues. I can't speak today. I'm very sorry. Sorry, everyone. All these people listening to us, and I can't even say the right word. But Larry is also well known as a national leader in transportation tweets, and he tweets as at @transpo_issues. So that's that. So if everyone's listening, you'll get a chance to ask questions at the end. Any questions that you don't get a chance to ask, we save all the questions because they're written. We send them to the people on the panel, and then they answer them in their own time, so you do get to hear that. And yes, this is being recorded, and you will get a chance to get the recording. So people normally ask, that's the first question is this being recorded? Yes. Yes, it is. So without any further ado, I've had 8 minutes of ado, I'm going to hand over to Bob, who will drive you from here, from A to B. Bob.
Kevin, quick question.
Yes.
This is Andy. Just to let you know, before the event kicks off, is there a hashtag that you want to use so that way people can tweet it out? So there are people listening in from outside.
That's a good point. I have no idea, because you will find out later on. I'm not a big social media user.
Andy.
Can we just make one up?
Andy,
I did.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. What is it?
It is social transpo. Social transpo.
Okay, so if you want to tweet this out or retweet social transpo, is the thing. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. That's great. We should have done this before, really. Now it's out. We don't know what we're doing, but we do know what we're doing. This is the whole point of social media. Now, the whole point of Andy, one of the things that Andy talks about regularly in his blogs is using content-driven or sort of user content to get people from A to B. If the bus is busy, the train's busy, people tweet and they put stuff on Facebook about the fact that they're late, and people pick up on that and they can rearrange their journeys. Andy was stuck in traffic this morning, weren't you? So I like the fact that
Yes, I was.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you stuck in traffic, because I am every day, but I was like the idea of doing a social media webinar and you were stuck in traffic, didn't use your own software. Anyway, so Bob, do you want to take over?
Absolutely, and I feel delighted to be on a panel with a wonky nerd engineer. I never heard anybody describing themselves that way before. And Kevin, I'm disappointed that we didn't take the glorious opportunity for the hashtag to be Office Dog at H3B Media. There you go.
Yes. So now everyone listening to this knows we actually have Office Dogs. It's plural. There are 2 Office Dogs.
Oh.
Not mine. Can I point out they're not mine? But anyway, whoever's keying, you're keying very loudly. It's straight through my ears. Anyway, so thank you for that. So Bob, let's talk about dogs now. We'll talk about transport. Go for it.
Okay, good. The talking points for today's session, and congratulations, Kevin, on putting together such an auspicious panel, multinational. It's just
Indeed,
amazing
that's where we come from.
the power of the webinar. I'm going to see how many times I can say webinar today just to annoy you.
I use it now. I use webinar.
I do? Okay.
I've ditched webcast because it doesn't contain video. It's a webinar. Fine, I've done with it.
Fine. Okay. We're talking about what social media actually is, how can it be applied to transportation, what are the values and benefits, are there likely to be any undesirable side effects? I mean, are large corporations going to leak information because people are tweeting all over the place? How do we harness the value of a social media network? I think there's been a lot of discussion about it's all very well all these people talking to each other, but how do we extract value from that process? How does social media fit within the conventional role of the public information officer? How does it fit with an integrated approach to outreach and marketing? Can we talk about any good examples where social media has been applied to transportation? And then what do you see as the future? And a question, does effective use of social media require a mindset change for transportation professionals? I'd be interested with about the panel's thoughts and opinions on that one. And without further ado, because Kevin gave us 8 minutes of ado already, we'll move on to Dr. Ayelet Galtzer from Technion University in Israel. Dr. Ayelet?
Thank you, Bob. I would like to say good evening because it's already evening in Israel. So good day, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. And the question I would like to address today is, can we practically harvest valuable information that is obviously related to transportation from this jungle that we call social media? I've had the honor and the pleasure to be engaged in this field of research for the past 2 years with my colleagues from the University of Leeds, the University of Venice, and the University of Haifa. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Well, the reason I like the scheme because it demonstrates the enormous amount of information created every minute of every day by the users of social media. The numbers are difficult to grasp. About 100,000 tweets per minute, about 700,000 pieces of content are added through Facebook every minute. When you do the math for an entire day or an entire month, then you know there are a lot of zeros there. Another figure that should be looked at is that 80% of this data is unstructured, which means that it is in the form of a free text. This fact actually raises a big challenge regarding our ability to extract the relevant information, to actually separate the wheat from the chaff. Can I please have the next slide? Thank you. So let's look a bit on social media. People talk through social media about everything, and obviously they also talk about transportation. Here are just 3 examples. The first one is about someone from San Jose that needs a ride to get to and from the concert, the Depeche Mode concert. The second one is someone encountered congestion and tweets about it, wants to tell the world about it. And the third one is someone very angry traveler that wants to complain about the bad attitude of the bus driver. Next slide, please. These examples actually reflect the general nature of the content that social media contains. In general, many times the type of information people contribute to social media, it's event-driven. Many times they say something about what they do at the moment, something that happened to them recently, or something that they plan to do in the near future. Next slide, please. So having this characteristic of social media in mind and understanding the need of decision-making in transportation, the first thing we did is we defined 3 types of information that we would like to look for within social media. The first type is messages containing information about a need for a ride. Naturally, this type of information is vital for any planning process in the transportation field. The other type of messages that we should look for are those containing reports about events. Events can be any incident like, I don't know, an accident on the road network or a closure of a subway station. And the third type of content that is likely to be posted through social media has to do with the public's opinion about the quality of service of various transport services. It can range from, I don't know, someone complaining about the level of accuracy of public transport to someone else maybe complimenting the comfort of the seats on the train. Next slide, please. Can I have, thank you. So, given the vast amount of information we already know that exists on social media and the definitions of what we're looking for, one might mistakenly think that the problem is solved when actually the problem just begins. Because the relevant information is buried under a huge pile of unstructured free text. Lucky enough, computer science people developed text mining techniques. Can I have the next slide, please? So the way to tackle the problem is actually to implement an interdisciplinary approach combining the expertise of computer science people and transportation professionals. And this is exactly, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. This is exactly what we did in an explanatory study we have conducted, and we decided to focus on tweets addressing journeys to and from the games of the Liverpool Football Club. We focused on 3 games, and what we did is we captured tweets around the dates of these 3 games and implemented text mining techniques obviously directed at the information that we're seeking for. Can I have the next slide, please? So the results are actually quite promising. We have managed to prove 2 concepts. The first one is that by automatic processes, we have managed to harvest a considerable amount of relevant information. For the 3 games we focused on, we automatically extracted about 300 relevant tweets per game. Considering there are about 40 games per season, that means that it adds up to 12,000 transportation-related messages per season. I think this is a substantial amount of information by any standard. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. We have also been able to demonstrate that the tweets address all the three types of information that we initially defined. Some messages contain information about need for a journey, some report various types of incidents, and almost half of them actually talk about, contain opinion of the public about the quality of service, mainly, of course, public transport service. Can I have the next one, please? So, although attempting to dig into the vast amount of social media information might seem frightening, social media is here to stay. So I would like to conclude my talk today with the words of the famous writer, Ayn Rand, who said that you can avoid reality, but you cannot avoid the consequences of avoiding reality. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Eilert. That was very thought-provoking. I think we'll save all the questions for the end, Kevin, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah, we'll save questions at the end. I just want to point out that I met Eilert and Susan in Perugia last year in Italy, talking about being global, at the Polis annual conference. They presented a really interesting paper about social media and transport, which led to them writing an article for Thinking Highways, and they've now written an even better article, if I may say, for our new magazine Thinking Cities, which launches on the 3rd of December. So I wanted to advertise my own stuff, but also to thank them for contributing to our magazines. They write some really good stuff. If you imagine that, those findings in a 2,000-word article with the beginning, middle, and end, not just presentations. It's a very, very good read. So you can register for the magazine later. But anyway, I want to thank.
So how many tweets is that if it's 1,500 words?
100, 110. I don't know. I didn't do maths. Over 100,000. I don't know. Quite a lot.
Yeah, that's why you're a journalist rather than an engineer. Yeah.
Yes, I can't spell journalist, and now I are one.
Okay, well, we shouldn't create much of a gap because I think Susan's going to pick up where Eilert left off here, yeah?
Yes, I'll pick up at this point, and again, this first slide is just acknowledging my research sponsors, but also my collaborators, one of whom, of course, is Eilert, who's just spoken to us, and I thank her for doing that. Some of the slides that I've got actually draw on the same pieces of research. So first of all, I wanted to start off by just giving these three quotes, some of the things that transport people from the transport sector are saying about social media at the moment, and the three different quotes here, three different opinions. One is from an academic, the first one there. The second is from a transport stakeholder, I won't say who, but from the City of London. And the third one is from a governmental body, and they're bringing out three interesting points for us here. The first concerns the potential of this kind of data to be a new source for us and to really transform the way that transport data is collected and used. The second point that we've got there is the potential for social media to be a valuable operational resource and to be used in terms of maximising the current capacity and current capability of the system in a very busy city. And thirdly, the point which maybe we're just coming to realise now, which is the need to have this new genre of technology professionals within the transport sector who are skilled in social media, social network marketing, and really being able to pull the best out of this new media, this new kind of data collection to the benefit of everybody. Thank you. So if we move on to the next slide. On this slide, I've set something about why I believe that people need to communicate through social media and where some of the potential of it is. And we've looked at this within the research from two perspectives. One is the perspective that we might think of being as a top-down, looking at things from the transport sector, and the second is a bottom-up perspective, where the bottom-up perspective is the information and the use of the media by users, transport system users, the travelling public, in other words. and what we would now call the user-generated content. And we can see lots of good reasons of why to use this media, but maybe the final one is one that we'd like to think about today, which is the opportunity for members of the public to really engage and to act as workers within the system in a way that maybe traditional transport data collection has not encouraged them to do, in order to achieve, well, of course, their personal objectives, but also objectives that are useful for the transport system. And so we move to the next slide at that point. As part of the research that we did, we undertook a scanning exercise of 10 transport sector bodies, so some authorities, some suppliers and so on, and how they were using social media. And this little exercise was intended to be illustrative rather than fully comprehensive. So it was only a small sample, but from this we wanted to look at the trends, the ways in which the sector, the transport sector in particular, reaches out to the public and is willing to invite them to engage with themselves as part of a two-way process. And by analysing the way that these organisations use particularly Facebook, but other social media, we were able to see these four levels of invitation, of holding the hand out, as it were, which range from a very strong invite from a transport company, which is very purposeful, very directive, and had a very focused way of engaging with the public in terms of using social media. And that particular organisation, it's an airline, and it has a well-established use of social media, and it employs people, quite a large body of people, and is really quite focused about how it's using social media, all the way down to level 4, as we might call it, where the media logos are present, there are links to Twitter streams, but really no direct invitation, no link to a Facebook page, or not even having a Facebook page at all. And interestingly enough, it was another airline who I won't mention, just in case, but maybe use your imagination, which didn't actually believe in this as a means of engaging with the public. So that's what that piece of research was showing us. If we move on to the next slide now, by analysing the content of the sites and the content that the transport sector were actually putting out themselves, we were able to determine these 5 sort of icons of behaviour, as I've called them here. And this gives some structure to the way that organisations, transport organisations, are currently using social media, starting from sort of one-way information updates on their main websites to a couple of ways to two-way engagement, so advising the public on travel disruption, getting their feedback about it, but also handling travel queries and complaints, which is also a two-way process. In some cases they are conducting this process in public and posting responses that they feel will be useful for a wider public. In other cases it's taking these queries offline, but continuing this two-way dialogue offline and with the confidential information that occurs when people are describing their particular travel arrangements. So these were five main ways that were coming through. If we move on to the next slide, thank you. We moved on then to talk about and to look at social media used by the travelling public, which we're calling the bottom-up approach, so where information was being generated from amongst the travelling public. And we wanted to answer these 2 questions that we've put here. So what transport relevant information are the public posting on social media? And Ayelet's already said quite some things about what our findings were there. But secondly, something that I personally feel concerned about, which is how does this information dovetail with the top-down information needs? So where is this meeting of the public and the transport sector? If we go on to the next slide then. So this slide summarises some of the findings. There is a reference at the end of this presentation actually to a couple of our papers, which gives some more detail for people who want to know more about what we found through the text mining process. But basically we were finding a lot of evidence on opinions being posted, information being posted about incidents, and also evidence of demand. So people indicating they had a demand for a particular service from a location or to a location, etc. But that really isn't the end of the issue, because it seems to be important to understand what potential does this information have for the transport sector to actually pick it up and use it. And I think this is one of the questions we were looking at the start of this session. And our interpretation of the kind of content we were finding was that social media has high potential to be able to supplement some of the service quality surveys that are carried out, often at great cost, and to draw out information, to draw out opinions and views and perspectives that are not necessarily going to come through some of the structured and traditional methods of survey that we've used in the past in the sector. I think secondly, we were finding that social media has high potential to supplement incident data. So here we're just interested in occurrences, incidents of things happening, and some of the concerns about the use of text mining, some of the quality of data issues really don't matter. If an incident is being reported, it doesn't really matter whether there were 5 other people who also reported it or 10 people who missed it, so accuracy doesn't matter, but just to know that it's happened. And finally, we're seeing some potential for this kind of data to supplement demand surveys, but really not to replace them at all, because at the moment the level of information that's coming through isn't as accurate as we would want it to be in terms of identifying precise locations. So if we go to, I think it's the final slide, the key messages that are coming out so far. So first of all, I've put it on the table that social media is now established within the orthodox system, that the transport sector are using this and users are contributing. Excuse me. That we've got evidence of icons of use for stakeholders, that some social media potential for it to be fulfilled really needs this golden handshake with both the sector and the travelling public engaging together, that we've got different roles emerging, and also that the transport sector really needs this emergence of skilled staff in the use of social media to bring out the best of it. And I think the final slide there just gives a couple of references for people who'd like to know more. Thank you. I'm sorry, I've got a frog in my throat at this point.
Thank you very much, Susan. Good job struggling through the frog. I really appreciate that. And obviously our eyes are being opened in these 2 presentations about the possibilities for social media, and I'm sure we'll have an excellent discussion at the end. But right now I'd like to move on to Lloyd Brown, Director of Communications for AASHTO, and let's hear Lloyd's view on the matter. Lloyd.
Yeah, thank you very much. I did find the first 2 speakers very, very interesting, and I think that as I get into a little bit more detail about how the American State Departments of Transportation are using social media, you'll see some consistency and some connectedness with some of their discussion. I want to start off by talking first about why social media would matter to an association like the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. And it really is reflective, I think, of the changing information consumption behaviors of the American public. And then ultimately we'll move into the State Department of Transportation operational aspects of social media. So let's go to the next slide real quick. And you'll see those 2 bullet points, why is social media important to AASHTO and the current state of DOT social media usage. Next slide, please. This particular slide, I tend to look a lot at Pew Internet and American Life Project online. You can find it at pewinternet.org, and you'll see, hopefully you'll see citations for all my data in this presentation on each slide. The thing about this particular slide, which I find fascinating, is that we tend to think of social media as primarily a young person's collection of media tools, when in actuality we're seeing significant growth in some of the older demographic and age groups in terms of how they're using, or the fact that they're even using social media at all. So in this case, we see that the latest survey results from 2012, late 2012 into early 2013, is showing that 6 in 10 of those who are over 50 are actually in social networks and using them. And then even more amazing, 2 in 5 of those 65 and over are actually involved in using social networking sites. So there's a specific or a significant involvement of people in the United States of all ages now in social media. It's not just a young person's phenomenon. Next slide, please. AASHTO, particularly our communications department, which is not a large group, it's a small group of just a few employees, we operate much like a communications organization, news organization, if you will, where we focus on content and we try to become content creators delivering information directly to our target audiences. And you can see from this slide the reason why that's so important to us. The latest research, and this actually comes from the Pew Journalism Project, and it shows that people are getting a significant amount of their news from social networking. So the previous slide we saw that people actually were on social networks. Here in this slide we see that not only are they on social networks, but they're getting a significant amount of their news from social media sites. The particular chart that I show here actually attempts to describe the way in which people will graze across social media and pull information, news information in particular, from multiple sites. So 1 in 10 persons actually gets their news from more than 3 social media sites. And that is important because it shows that as you're developing content, you have to be focused not just on putting your information in one place, but sprinkling it across lots of different places. So if you have some sort of information for the traveling public that's important, you'd want to put it on Google Plus so that it would rank high in the search. You'd want to tweet it so that people would see it in an operational or in sort of like radio. You'd want to tweet it out several times. You'd want to put it on Facebook so that people could like it and share it that way. And then perhaps even include a YouTube video as well. And all of those social media tools would work together to tell your story. Next page, please. When we look at news consumption in the United States, right now we're seeing that 50% of the public says that the Internet is their main source for national and international news. That's pretty amazing, really, when just a few years ago TV was the significant, most dominant resource for information. In this particular chart you see here, we break it down by age group, and when you look at the 18 to 29-year-olds, you see that 71% of those 18 to 29 claim that the Internet is their primary, first, main source of news and information. So for a transportation organization, for instance, the State Department of Transportation, you would definitely need to be active in this environment and be developing content that is shareable and accessible in an Internet environment. Next slide, please. Further research really is showing that, at least in the United States, what's really driving that interest in the Internet, social media, and getting your news from the Internet is the mobile devices. And people who've heard me speak before have heard me say this for several years, that the acceptance and the adoption of mobile media tools like tablets and smartphones is really driving and changing the way in which people consume media and look for news and information. In this particular case, you see that tablet computers account for 34% of American adults now own a tablet computer of some kind. When you take all of those together, e-readers and tablets together, it's somewhere upward of 43% of American adults now own some sort of mobile tablet or e-reader together. And just a quick look on my own mobile device, I have news consumption apps like Flipbook, News 360, the Huffington Post, USA Today, New York Times. It goes on and on and on, but these are specific apps that are developed specifically for consuming news and information on a mobile device. And that just facilitates my news consumption, and I spend all that money on that mobile device, I'm certainly going to use it. Next slide, please. One more slide, then. We're moving into discussing the state DOT's use of social media now. AASHTO began surveying its members, all 50 state departments of transportation, in 2010. And it was a very simple survey. We asked, are they using social media and what tools are they using? And what we found in 2010, which again is only 4 years ago was just half of the states, half of our members were even using Twitter, and primarily just sending road and traffic information that they already were providing to local radio stations to help tell people which lanes were open, which lanes were closed, maybe areas to avoid if there was congestion. Facebook was not a dominant tool at the time. Only a few states had a blog. However, 10 states at the time were podcasting, which was we found kind of interesting. So that was 2010. Jump forward then into next slide. And in 2003, we did the survey again. We always do this in the May-June timeframe, and we took a look at social media. And you can see here of our membership, 90% are now using Twitter and Facebook in unison. They are the significant tools for social media, and 80% of our members are now using video. So, and that isn't just YouTube, but it's primarily YouTube. So you can see how in just a few years, in just 4 years, the states have really identified how important this social media tool is for communicating, for many of the reasons I described earlier. One of the things that you'll see here, podcasts still have remained about 10 states. I think maybe it's 12 now. I don't have the specific number in front of me, but it's still not a dominant tool. Meanwhile, tools like Storify and Pinterest that weren't even invented 4 years ago are climbing in popularity. And I think in the next year or so you'll start to see movement into Instagram or into also Vine and some of these other tools. So the tools we expect to see change and shift. What we expect to see consistent is an interest in connecting with audiences in this online space. Next slide, please. This says 2012 equals engagement, but really it could be 2012/2013. It's a trend we identified last year, and it was only solidified this year that those initial messages in social media for the state departments of transportation were really focused on, as I mentioned earlier, what lanes were open, what the weather conditions were, how to avoid congestion, very much an operationally focused message from the state DOTs. What we're evolving into and what we see more and more as we look at the content that the state DOTs are delivering is a focus on longer-term planning projects. We're looking at looking for ways for people to engage in a deliberative process for project development or project options related to our project environmental documents, public involvement processes here in the United States. So it's not just what's going on currently at this moment on the roads, but it's also now turning into a bigger conversation about what is the most valuable, most important things about our transportation system. It varies state by state, but that's primarily how things are evolving. I want to move along here real quick. Next slide. One of the things that the survey has begun to show us is that while we have more tools today to communicate with the public, we don't have enough time. And the early promise of social media was that we would have a low-cost, efficient way of communicating with the public. We would bring in new audiences we'd never talked to before, and we would all do it with fewer people. And while much of that has proven true, these are generally low-cost tools to begin using. What we find is that the demand for information is almost 24 hours a day. The public and their consumption of information on mobile devices is endless. Their days are not just 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., the typical American work week or work day, but it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so the demands on the communication staff have not gone down. They've actually, in some cases, grown significantly, but just in ways that we hadn't anticipated in the past. So finally, this will be my last slide, and we'll move on. Looking ahead at 2014, as we look at the survey, we do ask them to speculate a little bit on emerging tools, and I think, as I mentioned earlier, we'll see more of social media emerging as a public involvement tool for state departments of transportation. We know now that social media is a standard tool for communication and outreach, but I think there's going to be more and more focus and more interest on what are the best practices? What are appropriate staffing levels? Who, in terms of state or federal or local employees, should have access to social media tools? All of these things are important questions to ask from an organizational standpoint. And when you look at the explosion of social media over the last 4 years, I think a lot of these questions have been passed by as we've moved into implementation. And so what you'll see now is that there's almost a bow wave of best practice questions coming on, where people are saying, wait, I'm doing this, but am I doing it most effectively? Am I doing it the way that the best organizations are doing it? So that's my presentation. I look forward to the questions and hearing the rest of the speakers. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much, Lloyd. I guess one of the challenges for public agencies is to make sure that the message going out over social media is consistent and clear as well. So I can see there would be a growing need for separate resources to manage the social media channels.
Yeah, I think that certainly is one aspect of it.
Yep. Okay, I think up next we have Andy Halasani from Transport Guru, and Andy's going to talk about social media and intelligent transportation systems. And as he had a difficult commute today, he has a very appropriate picture of a metro station on his first slide. Over to you, Andy. Are you there, Andy?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate that little mention about the metro trains here, but I think the picture over there is a lot more nicer than what I enjoyed this morning. All right. So anyway, let me first introduce myself. My name is Andy Planasamy, and I'm the founder and editor of the Transport Guru portal. So can you get the next slide, please? Oops.
So what was that picture anyway, Andy? Was that London?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
I recognise that station. It sounds too nerdy. I know it. Honestly.
Well, Kevin, we're getting your Dalek voice now.
Oh, I'll shut up then.
Okay, so compared to the other speakers who came in front of me, I'm going to just take a broad picture perspective and talk about social media, where it is and where it's going, and also how it's applicable to the ITS industry in specific. Because everybody else talked about transportation in general, but I'm going to dive one level down and look at some of the issues that are very pertinent to the ITS business. Next slide, please. There's a lag here. So anyway, here are some of the things that I've been doing on the web, which probably you already know. Some of you are already following me on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. If you haven't, here are some of the things I wanted to provide for you so you can follow me later on. And in my day job, I am serving as a contractor for the ITS Joint Program Office here at the U.S. Department of Transportation. And also in the evening, I try to keep up with the social media and my blog because that's a big passion of mine. Back in the day when I started, there was none of that stuff, so it continued to be a big challenge for me to keep it up to date because initially there were not many readers, but now I do. So it's kind of nice to just continue to do what I do as a community service. So there you are. Can you move to the next slide? Okay, let me first introduce a few things about social media. Of course, everybody hears about social media, then immediately the big things that come into your mind is Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And of course, it's much beyond that. Anything that you normally don't hear is where really the action happens. And one of the most important things that I'm looking at lately is the use of Google Plus and tools like YouTube and how they are being used for engaging with your audience. And get their input on some of the important campaigns and messages that you put out. And videos are of late becoming very useful tools, so I'm hoping that YouTube will gain more prominence. And also the use of Google Plus as an integration platform for all the video and everything associated with Google is probably going to make it even more exciting in the future. Okay, now one of the other issues that I'm looking at from the Web 2.0 perspective, being an engineer, I'm also looking at some of the data-related issues. But at the same time, I feel like one of the biggest things that happened is with more people adopting the social media tools or trying and testing out these tools, you get to see a broader engagement, which was kind of absent in the past. Before, in the past, if you had to just do a campaign of some kind of thing with a local DOT, you may probably take out an advertisement in the local paper, or probably publish some announcements on the regular conventional, or as Susan called it, the orthodox channels, like press release and things like that. But now those things have kind of like given way to the instant communication forums. Like you can now publish things on the web and just simply take a URL link, add it to the Twitter or Facebook message, and publish it immediately, and it reaches a wide audience who in the past were normally engaged in the conversation, but now they are being brought into this discussion. So which actually engages, which actually broadens the spectrum for a public agency in terms of getting feedback from the community, and also a good understanding of what exactly is being wanted at the root level. And the other item of interest is how the government can use some of this data for what we do in terms of engaging the citizens and empowering them with making decisions and things like that. Can I get the next slide, please? Okay. Oops. Okay, so this is a slide that I thought will kind of give you a perspective on where we were to where we are today. In the past, you have to go looking for information everywhere, and with the advent of internet and the modern tools that we have for accessing information, primarily Google, now you can access the data very quickly. And if you have these specialized apps and tools, you can even drill down to very specific data in a very small amount of time. So what it does is like this allows people to make more informed decisions as they get more and more data in their hand, which is actually where the power of social media lies, because the community participates, they populate the data, and the data is being consumed by the same community, and which in turn enables them to make more informed decisions. Next slide, please. So this is a slide that kind of gives you an overview of like the complexity versus the time graph. So I found this slide to be very useful and interesting when I looked at this data.gov presentation. So I borrowed it here. From the stone tablets all the way up to like the published printed books to the Graham Bell telephones to the television. So you can see that there's a very linear progress. I mean, there's a very interesting progress in terms of technology, how it has allowed people to communicate. And along with that, the complexity and the engagement level has also gone up. Now, if you continue to extend that line past where the network of computers sits, you will probably see the adoption of the smartphones and tablet devices. And if you even extend it further into what's coming down in the future, it will be things like the wearable devices like the Google Glass and the smartwatches and things like that. So this is actually, in a way, a very revealing chart, because it shows you like where we were to where we are today. And at some point in time, I'm hoping to extend this line and just show where we are headed to, where we are headed to in the future. So next slide, please. Okay, I'm not sure if you're able to see this chart very clearly because it's just a screen capture that I made yesterday. And it shows you like, the spectrum of the communications devices or the penetration in the market. You can see that chart that Lloyd put up earlier in terms of how much has been in use in terms of televisions, computers, e-readers, tablets. So this kind of gives you a good spectrum of like what's out there and how people are using that those medium to consume what is being published. So right now, I'm more excited about the smartphone and the computer and tablet and e-reader platforms, because that is where you see the massive growth. And as you can see, there's already a fade out of certain things, like, for example, the print publications are going out of fashion. Now, even the orthodox newspaper channels are converting themselves into online mediums or online portals where people can come in and consume their news. One that allows for immediate consumption and also immediate feedback from your readers, so you can always continue to engage them. It doesn't matter where they are, and it doesn't matter what time of the day it is. You can continue the conversation with your readers and provide them with the latest information. So next slide, please. Oops. Next slide. Okay, there you go. This one shows like, the growth of social media in a very short period of time. Like a decade ago, it was not even there. And now you're starting to see a tremendous growth in a lot of these channels. Now Facebook has crossed 1 billion people. If you put it in terms of population, that will be the third largest country in the world, because of course India and China are number 1 and number 2. 1 and 2 always differs. And Facebook would be somewhere in that region, like number 3 and number 4. And the other platforms, for example, Google Plus, it was not even in the picture a couple of years ago. Now it is starting to become very, very prominent, and I'm hoping that the number will continue to grow over a period of time. And this goes to show that how quickly the electronic industry has paved way for the adoption of these technologies by bringing down the cost of, or the barriers to entry, which I call the cost, down for some of these devices. By mass manufacturing the smart devices, we were able to reach a lot of people. And the growth is even more prominent in places in Asia, because in a lot of places they don't even have a proper electric connection in their home, but they do carry cell phones. This actually, I happened to see it in person when I was visiting my hometown in India. There was this milk vendor, and he didn't even have electricity in his house, but he had 2 cell phones. And I asked him, how do you charge? He has a separate car battery that he keeps in his garage where he parks his motorcycle, so he uses it from there to charge his cell phones, because he's relying on those cell phones to communicate with his customers every day, which was kind of very illuminating for me to see the penetration of these devices and the important role they play in the lives of these people. Next slide, please. Okay, now directly pulling this into what we do in our business, how social media has been a big communications tool for these transportation agencies in terms of getting the message out. So in the past, as you can see that, the number of, this is a chart that I got from the US DOT survey. And in the past, we used to have a very little penetration for these channels. But with the growth of technology now, you can see that a lot of these mediums have become more prominent and pronounced. And the subscription services have kind of gone down because now people are continuing to consume information via the social network sites, basically. So it has become a very important channel for communicating to the general public about the conditions on the freeways and arteries for any DOT. Next slide, please. Okay, and now for the ITS industry specifically, this is probably one of the most exciting times, because mobile technology has enabled a lot of the location-based services to materialize, because a lot of these things were initially being talked about in research papers and whatnot, and all of a sudden now you're seeing so much excitement because the proliferation of these devices and also some of this development in latest technology has allowed for these concepts on paper to be implemented and tested out. And plus also the public has kind of gotten used to the expectation. They have an expectation that they should be able to access information anytime, anywhere, on any platform. So that's where we are headed. And if you are a transportation agency who have always been contemplating whether you should use social media or not, you better be on social media, because the time to debate has gone now. Now it is a must that you are supposed to be on the platforms and engaging your audience in real time. One of the things that happened in the recent past is the introduction of Waze from Israel, of course, and that got bought out by Google. And it allowed for people to provide their version of the story while they're on the road. For example, if they happen to see an accident, they can report it, and this gets fed into the server, and it gets broadcast to everybody else who's coming downstream. So they get to also see that there's an accident here, and they can choose a different route to get past the accident scene, or or probably add their version of what's going on. Like, for example, I'm stuck in the backup 3 miles down. So it adds to what is being delivered via the traditional means, like the radio that you're listening to in the car, or your highway advisory sign that's over there. Now you have one more medium that propagates this information to you, which is much more accurate because people are reporting in from the field. So now Google has done a great thing by buying this product and integrating it with what they're trying to do. And one of the little things that I really liked about this Pew Internet survey that Lloyd mentioned earlier is that 91% of our population owns some kind of cell phone. And that's a huge number in my opinion. That's almost every other person, or every person in the United States. And out of that, 56% of them are smartphone adopters. So this number is going to continue to grow as more people change their cell phone plans, and because now these days they don't make those ancient phones anymore. These are very modern, very sophisticated devices they are bringing into the market, and they are very, very cheap because now they're able to mass produce and sell it with a very interesting business model by lowering the cost of entry. Next slide, please. Oops, there's the lag here. And this is a chart that I always loved, and I wanted to recycle it back into this conversation. It shows you the rise and fall of technology, or the gadgets as we call. As you can see at the very bottom of the chart, fax machines are almost out. Nobody's buying fax machines anymore. And so is the corded telephones in your house. You know, your house phone is pretty much out of the way because a lot of us have converted to using our cell phones as our primary means of communication. So now you can see that the rise of smartphones is also pretty much pretty steep actually. Now we are, this is in 2010, now the chart is going to continue to expand over a period of time, and we are going to very soon explode past close to 150 million devices. So it's a very exciting development that's going on right now. And next slide, please. Okay. And at this point in time, the millennial generation, at least, is pretty big on sharing everything. Basically, instead of owning things like we did in the past, instead of going out and buying a car, they are more willing to rent a car for a few hours and get their stuff done, and then come back and probably rent a bike and do whatever they want to do. So instead of just that cultural change is very significant for many of us in the business, because it kind of indicates that how this generation works and what they continue to expect. And sharing is everything at this point in time, and there are some of these companies that have catered to that need in the market space, and companies like Uber or Sidecar, they are able to cater to their customers by offering services via their cell phone. They can just simply use their app, call for a taxi or whatever, and they can get off anywhere, and then they can pay for it via their cell phones. So pretty much all you need is a cell phone, and you can get around the town pretty easily. Companies are like Lyft and Sidecar and Zipcar. They're all like innovative business models that are redefining the business that we knew in transportation. And it is a great time to be involved in transportation, because a lot of these things are being enthusiastically adopted by the younger generation. And as the younger generation leads the way, the rest of the community follows. So next slide, please.
Andy, can we maybe wrap up in the next couple of minutes? And Larry, don't panic. H3B Media have made a collection around the office there and have actually paid for extra time, so just want to let the audience know that H3B Media deliver extra value every time.
Thanks. We'll pay you later for that. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to wrap it up here real quick. So some of the other things that I want to bring up to the point is that public engagement is very important in social media. There are a lot of different ideas that are being quoted, and one of them is the public engagement using public engagement use in the transit space. And there are apps like Tiramisu that are very innovative, and now there are other ideas that people are pitching using social media, like the Google Car and also the Connected Vehicle Program, USDOT. So there are so many of these new things that are going on and that are very exciting, and all these are being made possible by social media. And decision making has also changed quite a bit, because now people can voice their opinions on social media, and that has a huge influence on how decisions are being made in these halls of power. Next slide, please. You can skip the slide. Next slide, please. And what is coming in the future? So this is where I was kind of like a little curious about, what the community thinks. So I'm going to leave this as a question. I think from the latest readings that I had done so far, you see 150 million connected cars are expected to hit the road globally by 2020. That's a huge number. So that means there's more data coming, and we need to know how to use and massage this data so we can make sense of it, because as Susan pointed out earlier, Ayelet pointed out earlier, there's so much data coming in, and we have to figure out how to handle all this data and make sense of it and put it to use in a way that people can relate to. And the other thing is that the introduction of devices like the Google Glass are also probably going to complicate the situation a little bit, because that's another data stream that we don't know how to handle yet. And also the question is, who wants this data, and how are we going to process this data, and are there any privacy concerns that we need to address? So there are some of these policy challenges that are so big that are yet to be defined and addressed. And it's going to be a very exciting time for many of us in the business. And I say that social media is here to stay, and be tuned. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Andy. And I was thinking as you went along there, if you send out a whole series of tweets with the same theme that are all kind of joined up, does it become a bird song?
Yeah, sure. And here's the thing. Unfortunately, I had a few more slides, but I'm not able to share all of them right now. So feel free to just take a look at the slide and contact me offline, and I'll be more than happy to explain what I have.
Wonderful. So what's your hashtag, Andy?
Transport Guru.
All right. Great. Let's move right along. Larry, don't rush. Take your time. Like I said, H3B Media have got some extended time here, so just, we really want to hear your point of view. So over to you.
Great. Thank you very much for having me. So, excuse me, I just noticed that some information on my slides didn't come through. So I'll be improvising and sharing some information not on these slides, and hopefully we can get the adjusted correct slide presentation made available to people afterwards. So I'm going to take a very different perspective because, as you all now know, we've just heard from a handful of people who are really experts in social media and the status of social media. So I thought it might be helpful for folks on the webinar to hear from someone who uses social media a lot as someone to, next slide please, as someone who uses it to promote stories, to promote my newsletter, to promote my brand, but also someone who is a consumer and uses social media to keep current with transportation issues all across the nation and even internationally, and as someone who's always searching for good stories to write about and tell and learning about more issues. Next slide, please. So the first thing I want to say is remember that your audience is going to be very diverse, and you've seen a little bit of this in the previous presentations. They're going to be diverse in many different ways, including why they're on social media in the first place. And so many of them will be on social media just simply to gather news, to learn about projects and issues in their community or in their state. But remember that you're also going to have fans and haters, people who don't like what you're doing and will be criticizing you. And you'll have people who will be engaged with your organization and yourself and not engaged at all other than to simply read your tweets, your posts on Facebook or the various other social media channels, and they simply just want to be informed. And then remember also that some of these folks are going to be rookies. They're going to be new to social media and not quite well-versed on how to use it, and others are going to be very well-versed. And so you're going to see that in a little bit of the feedback that you get from folks in terms of suggestions for how you can be using social media. Next slide, please. This is a screen grab I actually took from Andy's presentation. Thank you, Andy. I would encourage people to experiment to find the platforms that work best for your audience. You've heard previous speakers, in particular Lloyd, talk about all the various social media, I call them channels, out there, and how some are growing and some are declining, some are flat. Some of your audience will prefer Twitter. Others will prefer Facebook. Still others LinkedIn and maybe Pinterest or Instagram. And so I would encourage you to, Lloyd mentioned time's a finite resource. It's hard to sort of be everywhere all the time. But really explore and experiment with many of the different social media channels and find out which one seems to work best for a majority of your audience. And then one other hint for people is don't make your audience have to search for your social media channels. A lot of times when I'm on webinars like this, someone's speaking, I want to include their Twitter name or a link to their Facebook page, and so I go to their website and I have to go to their media page or their contacts page, or I have to click through 5 or 6 times to find out the link to their social media address. So I would really encourage people to put those social media channel links right on their home page, on all of their pages, really near the top. Next slide, please. And I think you're going to find that you'll be very surprised what interests people and what ends up promoting your brand and organization. These are 2 pictures of a traffic center. And I pulled these pictures because I think in transportation, we have a tendency to talk a lot about numbers and data. It's what we use every day. Numbers and data are really important to our business, but a lot of times we forget the people involved with these numbers and the people using these numbers. And so, for example, if you're talking on your social media channels about traffic or about a new traffic center, it's important to talk about the numbers, but it's also important to show pictures, for example. Even on Twitter, you can post a picture of your traffic center and mention one of these people. Joe Smith is monitoring 100 different traffic intersections. It's easier. The next slide, please. Lloyd touched on this, but be efficient with your resources. This is going to sound like an ad for Hootsuite. They're not paying me for this. I just happen to be a big fan of Hootsuite. There are many other applications out there that others use and probably like just as much. What I really like about Hootsuite is it enables me to write one message and post it simultaneously to Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, the 3 channels that I use the most. And so this application, and there are many others like them, really help me to be efficient with my time. I write one tweet, and I can send it to several of my channels at once. And as I alluded to earlier, I have followers who follow me only through Twitter and others only through LinkedIn or Facebook. And so this is really helpful to me because it helps me avoid having to go to 3 or 4 different websites to post a message. Next slide, please. And this is just a screen grab of what the Hootsuite application looks like. And so that first column on the left, that's my political news. And so that contains tweets from a bunch of different people that I'm following who are writing about politics, mostly in Washington, D.C. That next column is my national transport column. And so this is where I follow people from all over the country who are tweeting about various transportation issues. The next one is very specific to green transportation, and the last column on the right is very specific to Northwest transport. Again, there are other applications out there that you can find that will do this for you. But again, this helps me be very efficient with my time. In a matter of minutes, I can catch up with what's going on around the country, around my state, and around the world in transportation issues and figure out, are there some stories I need to be following or writing about, and are there some interesting tweets that I can be retweeting. Next slide, please. I wanted to talk a little bit about simplifying the amplification of your messages and really try to not make your audience have to work. I mentioned earlier having a prominent placement of your social media links on your page. What you can't see on this slide is some information where I suggest limiting your tweets to 120 characters, not 140. And I'll have a demonstration of this in a minute. Shorten your links. Don't make your audience have to shorten them. and be clever but not too clever. As we've all may have found using social media, it can be very easy to accidentally insult someone when you're trying to be clever. Next slide, please. And so here I'm using an example from yesterday, and this ties into helping your audience amplify your message and not making them have to work too hard. So this first tweet at the very top is actually a tweet from the U.S. House Transportation Committee. And they're mentioning that the first meeting between the House and the Senate on the water transportation bill was going to happen today. And so this is information that's really important for a lot of people around the country. Well, if I simply hit retweet for that, it goes to 154 characters, 14 characters too many. So now if I really want to retweet this, which I did because this is important information for my audience, I now have to figure out how can I modify that tweet and send it out so that all the information is there, particularly the link at the end of the tweet. And so at the very bottom you can see how I modified it, but when there's information that I think is really critical for my audience, I'll take the time to modify it. If I think it's not as critical, I'm not going to take the time. And so this is where you can really, I believe, amplify your message by helping your audience not have to work to retweet or repost your social media messages. Next slide, please. And use everyday language. I call this being formally informal. I don't know that any of us would use the example in that first line. You should see this. But a lot of people on Twitter tweet in the same manner that they write memos or write news releases or write reports. And so you'll see full sentences like, I think you will appreciate seeing this information. And you can simply change that to, you'll like this report. And so that's a way of getting all of your information into a tweet, into a Facebook post, so that, again, people who find this information valuable can send it on to other people. Next slide. Another point that I think is particularly important for public agencies is to share your successes and achievements. This builds trust and credibility with the public and your stakeholders. And I'm a firm believer, I've seen it in action, that public agencies, they have a lot of really good, talented people doing really good work for the public. But we get so busy with our day-to-day jobs, our day-to-day work, that we forget to share those successes and achievements. And so the media tends to focus on the missteps and the miscues of public agencies. They tend not to write as much about successes and achievements. So this is really up to us, it's up to you to share those successes and achievements and make sure that more of the public understands them. Next slide. And the last piece of advice I would offer is don't overthink this. There are so many reports and books out there telling us how to do social media. And I would just encourage people, just do it, jump in, don't be intimidated. As you see from some of the previous presentations, there are a lot of the older generation that is getting into social media. They're jumping in, and so if they can do it, all of us in public agencies can do it as well, and just get going. Next slide, please. I wanted to close with this last slide. This is actually from a presentation, a report about social media by a very famous environmentalist person on Twitter. His Twitter name is Dr. Grist. I think this is good advice for us at any time, but in the context of social media, he was really encouraging people, as this slide says, be helpful to people you look up to and kind to those who look up to you. And so I thought that was just a really nice way of, a really nice philosophy about engaging in social media, not only with our stakeholders and our audience, but with our peers. And that's, next slide, that's the last slide for me. And I think this last slide, yes, has my contact information. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Larry. I was going to ask you if the fact that your political stuff was in the left column was of any significance, but maybe I shouldn't.
No, it's not.
Okay, I think we got some questions. Gareth, is that correct?
Yeah, we certainly do. Because we've overrun the hour, I'll maybe just keep it to one, and because it came in this order, I will just ask the first question that came in, and it was a question about, I think the very first presentation is, what program did you use for the data mining?
Was that a question for Eilert?
I believe so, yes.
Eilert is muted.
Yeah, well spotted, that man. Let me unmute her so that she can actually answer the question I've just asked her. There you go, Eilert. You should be unmuted now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, it was not, since it was not a program that we used, it was a method. And to be honest with you, I don't remember the name of it, as the computer science people are the ones from the University of Haifa, not from, I'm a transportation expert, but I will be happy to find the name of the algorithm that we used and send it to whoever asked the question.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Well,
Can I
we have.
just jump in, Bob? Sorry, can I just
Okay, go ahead. Yep.
jump in before anybody else does? We are going to redo Larry's presentation, so those of you that would like to see Larry's presentation without white text on a white background, which he didn't do, we don't know why what's happened. So there's some good stuff. Now I can see it, but other people can't. So we'll make sure that that happens and you get the correct presentation. As I said before, this is being recorded, so you'll get all this stuff. But one thing I wanted to make sure before we forget, those of you with a nervous disposition that don't like bad language, this may not be funny, but there's a friend of mine who is a radio DJ. He has about 6 different options of getting to work by tram or train or bus. And for the last week, he discovered a new Twitter feed called Swearing Trains, or @SwearingTrains. What it basically does is its algorithm picks up on word clusters, words such as train, late, delayed, again, system, service, that kind of thing, with swear words in English. It's a London-based thing. So if you go to @SwearingTrains, you'll find some information, and he's actually, this week, he's planned his journeys to work entirely using @SwearingTrains. So people say, my train is late, for example, other words will be in there, and he finds out that that train's late. He goes therefore by tram. He can go via other means of transport. I just thought it was quite a nice way of ending this, but you can actually look at people getting very cross with the trains, but that actually does help other people. So social media is entirely inclusive and not exclusive.
So Kevin, Gareth tells me that H3B Media have also invested in advanced technology, that the problems with Larry's slides were created by your new advanced content management system, where every time we go a minute over time, the office dog chews a slide off the next presenter's presentation.
That's exactly right, yes. And then the longer we go over, the more text drops off the end. So other people who write in green text on green backgrounds, it's fine.
Yeah.
So, yes, we apologise. Please don't tweet that, anybody.
Yes, the office dog is colorblind.
But what did work, though? We had 93 people register for the event. We had about 40 or so, and then when when Andy came back from his holiday, he retweeted the fact that this was going ahead, and we got another 50 people. So whether that was entirely Andy's followers, but social media worked to get people to come to a social media event. So I think it's proof that it works. So Bob, do you have any more final comments?
Well, just hopefully we've encouraged people to pay attention to social media and the power of it, and hopefully Kevin they get as excited about social media as I do. You know, I wrote a poem while we were talking here. Every time I think of Facebook, it sets my heart to Twitter and just makes me want to Google out loud. I'm going for the title of the world's worst poet, by the way.
Was that the title, or was that the actual poem itself?
Yeah, no, that is the title and the poem. Yeah, it's.
I think it was 3 syllables longer, too long for a haiku.
It may be short enough to. It may be short enough to tweet though.
Oh, definitely. I think 120 characters. It gives you 20 more question marks you can stick at the end, doesn't it?
which raises an interesting question. Just because you can tweet it, should you tweet it?
Well, I don't think. I think people have their own private thoughts. No one has a private thought anymore. People tweet it. It's called a private thought for a reason, everybody. It should stay private. Some of the stuff that people tweet is just incredible. The whole reason that I've not massively got into Twitter is, some of you will know, there's an English soccer player, I can't use the word soccer, there's a soccer player called Rio Ferdinand who has 1.9 million followers on Twitter. And it's just proving that footballers really should be quiet. And the years ago when footballers were not particularly intelligent, it didn't matter. Now you can see how daft they are. He tweeted last year, this is what put me off Twitter, he tweeted, "Just been to the toilet, 15 minutes peace and quiet, 6 exclamation marks, lovely." Now, what picture do we now have in our head, those who know what he looks like? We just don't want to know that he's been to the toilet, but he's told 1.9 million people that he's been to the toilet. Shush, stop it. We don't need to know this stuff.
Kind of sums up the way he plays anyway.
It's very true. It is now, yes. Nice, thank you, Bob, for that. But anyway, so I'd like to thank Ayelet, Susan, Larry, Lloyd, and Andy for their time, and thanks for putting so much effort into the presentations, guys. Excellent stuff. I hope you, the audience, of which there are still over half of people there, still listening to this summing up. So thank you for your time for listening. Thanks for all the people who sent questions. We will send the questions to the speakers, and we'll create a document of answers that we can send back. So thanks to all the speakers. Thanks for your time. Thanks to Bob. And thanks to Gareth, thanks to you, the audience, for tuning in old-fashioned terms. The next one won't be until the end of January, but that's going to be about the thinking city. So in time-honored fashion, it's good night from him, and it's good night from me. Good night.